In today's video, we're diving into a complex but crucial question. Can BRICS nations replace the dollar's dominance in the global market? We'll start with a look at how the dollar has held its position over time, shaping global trade as a primary medium of exchange and unit of account. We'll also tackle the political and economic diversity within BRICS, its trust and stability, and the potential for US retaliation. The idea of BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, replacing the US dollar in global markets is a topic of increasing relevance as these emerging economies expand their influence. The dollar has long dominated international trade, finance, and central bank reserves due to the United States' economic strength, political stability, and deep financial markets. However, recent geopolitical tensions, economic sanctions, and the desire for a multipolar world order have intensified discussions around reducing dependence on the dollar and establishing alternative currency systems. The possibility of BRICS establishing its own currency or further using their domestic currencies in trade may seem feasible on the surface, but such a shift faces significant challenges. To understand if BRICS could replace the dollar, we need to analyze the factors that give the dollar its dominance and examine the structural, economic, and political realities BRICS faces. The dollar's dominance, a historical and structural overview. The dollar's current status is not merely a result of US economic strength, but a culmination of historical, structural, and geopolitical factors. After World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944 established the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, pegged to gold. Although the US abandoned the gold standard in 1971, the dollar remained dominant due to the depth and liquidity of US financial markets, global trust in American institutions, and the stability of the US economy. The dollar's role is multifaceted, functioning as a medium of exchange. The dollar is used extensively in international trade, especially for commodities like oil. The petrodollar system, where oil prices are denominated in dollars, reinforces the currency's dominance. Store of value. Central banks worldwide hold significant dollar reserves as a hedge against economic uncertainties. Unit of account. Many global debt contracts, loans, and cross-border financial transactions are denominated in dollars. Additionally, the dollar benefits from a network effect since it is widely used. Individuals, institutions, and governments continue to use it, creating a cycle of demand that makes it hard for other currencies to displace. The case for BRICS as an alternative to the dollar. Economic size and influence. Together, BRICS economies represent over 40% of the world's population and around a quarter of the global GDP. The combined economic power of these nations gives them significant bargaining power in international trade and finance. China and India, in particular, are projected to be among the world's largest economies in the coming decades, which strengthens the group's ability to impact global markets. Mutual trade. BRICS countries have been expanding trade among themselves and with other emerging economies, which reduces the reliance on the dollar. For instance, Russia and China have made considerable efforts to trade in rubles and yuan rather than the dollar, particularly since US-led sanctions on Russia following the 2014 annexation of Crimea and the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Such arrangements could potentially decrease demand for dollars in intra-BRICS trade, currency swaps, and central bank initiatives. BRICS countries have set up currency swap lines and launched initiatives to settle trade in the domestic currencies. The New Development Bank (NDB), also known as the BRICS Bank, and the Contingent Reserve Arrangement (CRA) were established to provide financial alternatives to dollar-based institutions like the IMF and World Bank. These initiatives show an effort toward financial independence, though the scale of these institutions is still modest compared to their Western counterparts. De-dollarization policies. Many BRICS nations are pursuing de-dollarization policies. China, for instance, has been promoting the internationalization of the yuan through mechanisms like the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System (CIPL), an alternative to the SWIFT payment system dominated by the dollar. Similarly, Russia has increased its gold reserves while reducing its holdings of US treasuries. Such moves reflect a concerted effort to hedge against dollar dependency. Challenges for BRICS in replacing the dollar. Lack of a unified currency. The absence of a common currency among BRICS nations is a major hurdle. Each country has its own monetary policies, economic priorities, and exchange rate regimes. Establishing a new currency or selecting one among the group, for example, the Chinese yuan, as a primary currency would be complex. This lack of cohesion is a significant barrier to competing with the dollar. Political and economic diversity. BRICS countries have different political systems and economic models, which can lead to conflicting interests. For instance, China's centralized political model contrasts sharply with India's democracy, and these differences can affect collective decision-making. This diversity makes it challenging to establish a unified policy for BRICS currency or trade system. Trust and stability. The dollar's strength also lies in the global trust in US institutions and the perceived stability of the American political and legal system. Many investors prefer the dollar because of the transparency and security provided by US financial markets. In contrast, some BRICS nations face concerns related to political risk, regulatory opacity, and currency volatility, especially when it comes to the Russian ruble and the Brazilian real. Depth of financial markets. US financial markets are among the deepest and most liquid in the world. A significant reason for the dollar's dominance is that it can absorb vast amounts of global capital. BRICS financial markets, with the exception of China, lack this depth. Investors and governments worldwide need safe, liquid assets that they can hold in large quantities, a quality currently unique to the US Treasury market. Alternative currencies have limitations. While the Chinese yuan has gained traction, its use is limited due to China's capital controls and its currency's managed exchange rate. Investors often face restrictions on how freely they can buy and sell the yuan, limiting its attractiveness as a global reserve currency. Other BRICS currencies face similar challenges due to limited convertibility and concerns over inflation. Potential for US retaliation. Should BRICS efforts to replace the dollar gather momentum, the US might respond through economic or geopolitical means, particularly if it perceives these moves as a direct threat to its financial hegemony. Economic sanctions, tariffs, or even political isolation could be employed to counter the rise of a BRICS-centered currency system. Prospects and a realistic outcome. While BRICS nations have made strides in reducing their reliance on the dollar, a complete replacement is unlikely in the foreseeable future. Instead, a multipolar currency system seems more probable, where the dollar, euro, and potentially the yuan each play significant roles. In such a system, BRICS countries could increase the use of their currencies in bilateral trade agreements and regional trade blocs, but the dollar would likely remain dominant in global finance due to its entrenched position. One potential scenario is the gradual regionalization of currencies, where BRICS countries use their own or neighboring currencies more often for trade and investment within specific regions. For instance, China and Southeast Asia may increasingly rely on the yuan, while Russia's ruble might be preferred within certain parts of Eurasia. Conclusion: the possibility of BRICS replacing the dollar in the global market remains limited by structural, political, and economic challenges. The dollar's resilience is a result of long-standing economic policies, institutional trust, and market depth that BRICS currencies, even collectively, cannot easily match. While the future may see a diversification away from the dollar in specific areas, the broader, long-standing dominance of the dollar will likely continue in global finance. A multipolar currency world where the dollar, euro, and possibly the yuan coexist is more likely than a complete BRICS-driven replacement. The journey toward even partial de-dollarization will take time, and whether BRICS can achieve substantial change will depend on overcoming the significant internal and external hurdles that currently exist.